And hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you're joining from. Chodesh Tov, Shavua Tov. I'm really delighted to be here for another month to welcome this new month of Sivan that, as Mark said, we just entered right after Shabbat. And in the Jewish calendar, this is the month of receiving. We're moving, as Mark said, rapidly toward Shavuot, which begins this Thursday evening. And we are at now day 46 of 49 of counting the Omer. So we're almost there. We have almost reached Sinai and almost reached this point of revelation in the calendar. This is such a mysterious moment when we practice each year in Jewish time, opening ourselves enough to receive the wisdom and the presence and the love of Torah. And I think it matters, and Mark mentioned already in his introduction, but I think it really matters to remember that we don't arrive at this moment immediately at all. In fact, it's the opposite of it. It's what we've been doing for the past almost 49 days. And the Hebrew calendar really understands revelation not as a sudden event that's disconnected from anything else in life, but as something that we've been deeply preparing for. So walking back over the last couple of months, remember first in Nisan, we had to leave Mitzrayim, we had to leave Egypt, the narrow places. And we had to move through the uncertainty that took, move through the liberation, and then through ER, this really long and winding month of healing and integration and accounting and repair that we've been in until this past Rosh Chodesh. So that's 49 days of this counting and refining and becoming ready. And so now we're here. Historically, this is the season of the wheat harvest, right? So it's a time of gathering and taking stock. But spiritually, too, the question that Sivan asks is really, what is within us now that is ripe enough to receive? And I guess an even deeper question would be, what does it mean to receive? What does it mean to receive? Because I think for a lot of us, we're a lot better at striving than receiving, right? Producing, we help, we can manage, we can give. And receiving can feel a lot more vulnerable. To truly receive means a loosening of our grip on any kind of control. It's allowing ourselves to be touched, to be affected. And there's a line in At the Wells, Sivan Moon Manual that I know we'll share that I keep coming back to that says, our capacity for openness correlates directly with how much we can receive. So I think that's powerful because it's not how accomplished we are. It's not how spiritually impressive or polished or certain, but really just how open. How willing are we to stand honestly before our own truth? And so receiving Torah is not just about wisdom, it's also about receiving ourselves more honestly. And one really beautiful image and teaching about Shavuot is this idea that every Jewish soul, past, present, future, stood together at Sinai that night. So every ancestor, every descendant, every seeker, everyone who is converted to Judaism, their soul was there too. Every person who would someday accept Torah, wrestle with Torah, resist, reinterpret, return, every person carrying their own questions about their identity or belonging or integrity. All of us were there. And I find something really healing about that image because I think it means that we don't have to arrive. We've been on this journey to heal and to prepare, but we don't have to arrive at Sinai having resolved ourselves. We arrive with all of our contradictions and all of our tenderness and in our unfinishedness. And somehow the revelation still happens. And so what that means, and I think it ties really beautifully into a meditation practice, is that when we sit in practice, when we're quiet enough to listen, and when we soften enough to receive, we are joining this conversation carried across generations of space and time. This transmission that's not just through text and book and idea, but is through the living body, and through memory, and through breath. And one more really beautiful reflection from the Moon Manual from Gabri Kukuruza. It's about Torah not only as the written words on the page, but as the living wisdom that's carried in the bodies and the spaces between words. And I think meditation feels deeply connected to that. So much of this practice is about learning to listen beneath the loudest layer. It's about noticing the whispers underneath, the undercurrents. And so in meditation, again, in our practice, we're not arriving at Sinai perfected. We're not manufacturing holiness or spirituality. We're practicing availability. And we're doing it as with all of the souls at Sinai across time. We're doing it together. None of us receives this alone, just as we sit together in our practice today. We arrive carrying our own lineages, stories, songs, and questions, and ways of being, and also with what is unfinished waiting to move through us. So as we sit together in our collective space today, maybe the invitation is simply to become just a little bit more open and a little bit more available and a little bit more willing to receive what is already here, what is already within us. So with that, I invite you, if you haven't already, to settle in as you begin your practice. Settle into your posture, whether that's sitting, reclining, camera on, camera off, whatever it is, just allowing the body to be supported. Letting the earth hold your weight, hold you. And if it feels comfortable, you might allow the eyes to soften, the gaze to drop, or even for the eyes to close. And begin by simply noticing the breath. Not forcing it, not improving it, just receiving it. Feeling the inhale arriving, feeling the exhale releasing. Notice how breath itself is an act of receiving. The body receives life moment by moment, never needing to earn it. Perhaps allowing the jaw to soften, the shoulders, the hands, the muscles around the eyes. Just noticing where the body feels open today and where maybe feels a little more guarded. No need to change anything. Just allowing the awareness to be honest and gentle. You might quietly ask yourself, what am I invited to receive right now? And then listening without forcing any answer. What am I being invited to receive right now? Perhaps what arises is not a thought, maybe a sensation, maybe a longing, maybe pain, resistance, maybe tenderness, or even silence. That too belongs. Now widening your awareness slightly. Perhaps you receive a sound, the hum or the soft noise of the room that you're in, the sound of breath, the sounds of the body, silence. Receiving the world around you. Perhaps becoming aware again of all of the people sitting in practice right now. Some known, unknown, some near, and some far. Breathing together beneath the same moon. Returning now to the image of Sinai that all Jewish souls, past, present, future, stood together to receive. Perhaps you can imagine yourself there, held across space and time. Or perhaps you can perceive yourself held in another way, collective, across space and time. Inside the gathering, ancestors beside you, future generations beside you. people you know, people you will never know. All listening and all opening. So you can notice what it feels like in the body to belong to something so large. Sensing that you are not alone, that you are carrying generations. Generation are carrying you. Maybe you can imagine the mountain Sinai, the air, and the silence before revelation. And sense what within you may feel ready or frightened or longs to open. If it feels supportive, maybe placing a hand on the heart. Acknowledging the living body, offering, may I be more available to wisdom. May I soften enough to receive what is needed. May I remember that I do not receive alone. May I trust that revelation is still unfolding. Now gently returning to the breath, the body, to the room around you, the ground beneath you. When you're ready, gently opening the eyes, introducing some movement. Wishing each of you a Hodesh Tov. May this month open this gift of receiving.
Thank you so much, Lily, for guiding us on this stretch of the journey towards Sinai so beautifully, so skillfully, and with so much gentleness. Much appreciation. Friends, let's seal the practice as we do each day. If you're in mourning or observing a yard site, or if it's your custom to join in the mourner's Kaddish, you're invited to do so. And if not, we encourage you to please stay present to support those who are. You can put the name or names of anyone you're honoring today as you recite Kaddish in the chat now or after. And if you are joining me, please rise in body or in spirit, then you can unmute at this time. Yit Gadal, Yit Gadal,
Shimei
Rabba,
Rabba,
Yama,
Yamad,
Dika,
Yamafite, Yamif, Malkute,
Malkuche,
Kayeton,
Yaakov,
Kaye,
Yaakov,
Deval, Beit Yisrael,
Israel,
Ha'agalah,
Hagala,
Bizman, Karib,
Arif,
V'imru, Amen.
Amen.
Yishmei Rabba, Mevarach, Le'olam, Ulamei, Amaya. Barach, V'yishtabach, V'ar, V'itramam, V'yitnaseh, Tada, V'yitale, V'yithalal, Shemei, D'kuvah, B'richu. Ha'edla, V'kol, Birchata, V'shirata, Shbachata, V'nechamata, Amiran, Alma, V'imru, Amen. He Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, L'chaim, Leinu, V'al Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. Oseh Shalom, B'mromav. Uyaseh Shalom, Aleinu, V'al Yisrael, V'al Yoshvei Tevel, V'imru, Amen.
Amen.
We are say Shalom Aleinu, we'll call Israel, we'll call you straight to go.
Thank you all so much for being here today, and for leaving us now. Hope you'll join us. The rest of the week, I didn't mention at the outset that we, of course, will not be meeting live this Friday as we observe Shavuot, but we will be meeting tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday. Tomorrow, I'm very delighted that we'll be led by Zach Newman, who now is with our sibling organization, Or Halev. Zach has led us many times on the Daily Set and is a wonderful teacher. Hope he'll join us. Looking forward to welcoming him back tomorrow. I'll be leading our sit on Wednesday, which will be in partnership with Dorot in New York City. And that the theme of that sit on Wednesday will be celebrating the accumulated wisdom of our lives. And on Thursday, as we head into Shavuot, Josh Nagelson will be leading us as we get ready to sit together at Sinai. So we have a wonderful week of practice coming up. Hope you'll join us for any or all of those. And of course, if you're staying with us, as I hope you will, you're welcome just to turn the sound off on your device and continue to sit with us, or join us, share reflections, ask questions. If you have a question you'd like to ask, please put it in the chat. Write question all in caps. I'll try to work it into the conversation. And of course, again, thanks to Rachel Hugot for holding our tech space beautifully, as always, today. Lily, thank you so much. Well, you're muted. Let's get you on mute there. That was just a very beautiful meditation. Thank you so much. It was a real gift. It struck me, or occurred to me as I was sitting, and we were focusing on one aspect of your guidance was, on focusing on receiving and noticing the ways in which that can be challenging for some of us. And you noted a couple of reasons why that might be so, including the loss of the illusion of control, right? And it was interesting to think, wow, from Passover, it takes 7 weeks to get to a point of being capable of fully receiving, right? That it would be unrealistic to expect somebody in the immediate aftermath of, let's say, of traumatic experience, and I would say even just sort of like being very agitated, to shift into a stance of being vulnerable, open, and willing to receive, which can take many different forms, including, receiving the possibility that one might be wrong, being open to other viewpoints, et cetera, et cetera. So I just this is by way of appreciation for that aspect, of your teaching today, of noting that it's really a long process to work on that. And I'll end that with a question to you, because I'm sure there are many here who have experienced either personally, some significant trauma, or carry epigenetic or intergenerational trauma, and for whom it's just a very, that moving into that state of awareness or consciousness and being willing or able to open in that way in general is very challenging. So I wanted to see if you have any suggestions, if people are if people relate to that.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. It's a great question, and I certainly relate to it personally too. And I think, calling out as you did, epigenetic, intergenerational, I think that's a really powerful part of the story of Sinai too, in that we stand collectively together as a group over time,
Mm.
all carrying those things, and then each, of course, carrying our own too. So, I think, and I tried to touch on a little bit in the teaching and the meditation. One piece of it is honesty, which is part of the story too, right? Standing. The first part of openness is maybe just standing before your own truth or before what is true, which
Mhm.
can be a really long process on its own and be really hard work. But maybe just as a first step, being open to seeing what is.
Mhm.
Um, and then, you know, taking each little step as it comes, that being ready to receive. And even, I think, as you said, it took so long in the story of this journey for the Israelites to be ready to receive Sinai, but they might not be completely ready, even with the 49 days, even with that preparation, right? So it doesn't end there. So one tiny step at a time, I guess, is what I would say.
Yeah, that's good. And also, I think that's really good, one step at a time, which is, of course, illustrated by the whole Omer journey. And up to the other thing you just said that I want to, also underline about honesty, right? And that part of getting to a state of being able to be more receptive than we might otherwise is being honest about the obstacles and about how challenging it is. So I see some people have said, in the chat, have talked about that. So the other elements, and you just alluded to this as well, is the sense of uh, security in the sense of not having to go it alone, right? That we're in that it's collective. This is a collective revelation. In fact, I don't know of any, personally, I don't know, maybe someone would say in the chat, but I don't know of any other religious tradition in the world, really, that has this idea of collective revelation, collective receiving in this, in the way it's described in the Torah, that it's not through a particular, Moses obviously plays a role, but his mission is actually to bring the whole people there. And then the rabbis expand on that, as you said, by teaching that, um, you know, everyone who is part of this collective from that time forward actually is there as well. Um, is also really powerful, whether born Jewish, Jew by choice, however one is included in that collective. And also that all the teachings are there, waiting to be unpacked, every single opinion, that we've come up with so far, and all the ones that are going to be delivered in the future. So it's really powerful. And that seems to me really helps provide that sense of groundedness of, oh, I'm not alone. It's also hard for other people. Also, there's lots of people like me involved in this. I don't have to be like those people over there. I can find my people, and we're included too. So that's very powerful and so helpful, I think, as we move towards the end of this process. So, actually, I want to invite you. Just want to give a shout out, really, because you cited the Moon Manual a couple of times, and make sure that people know. Maybe you could talk a little bit about this. That At the Well produces what they call a Moon Manual, which is a wonderful resource around each Hebrew month that you can download for free from their site. So maybe you want to give a shout out to At the Well here, and maybe have you explain what the resources are about.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Would love for everyone, if you haven't seen it already, to have a look at our Moon Manual. At the Well produces a lot of resources, but the Moon Manual, as Mark said, it's a publication that comes out, a digital publication that comes out at the beginning of every Hebrew month, is really our hallmark offering that's always free and always available. And it includes both teachings, wisdom, practices, and ritual that are intended to be done individually or as part of a collective if you're getting together with others for Rosh Hodesh. So please do check it out and enjoy. There's a lot in there this month, and well, every month is great, but there's journal prompts. And I think one thing that I would just mention, I'm flipping through it right now with the Moon Manual this month too, is that there's always multiple layers through which you can approach any of the themes of the months, right? So I tend to like to go deeper and talk about maybe why it's very hard to receive and some of the painful layers of that, which we've been exploring today. But there's also some much lighter and really beautiful ways to engage with Sivan that you can access through the Moon Manual and beyond, right? There's simply like calling in gratitude and thinking about maybe what you have already received and what you are receiving. And noticing blessings is another really beautiful thing to mention. Noticing the breath, the health that maybe you have in your body, or a beautiful piece of fruit, or the abundance of early summer. So there's all sorts of ways to engage too. And I think the Moon Manual does a good job of kind of filling the full range of how that can look.
Yeah. And you haven't even mentioned cheesecake
Oh, gee,
or
that's
blintzes yet, so there's that too, right?
yeah.
For those who don't know, eating dairy is also a tradition on Shavuot. All right, Lily. I think that I see a lot of appreciation. It was really just a lovely guided meditation for all of us. And I want to invite people to savor that and maybe even just stay with it, when we sign off here and let yourself. I see some roses coming your way also from the reactions. Why eat dairy on Shavuot? Well, there's different thoughts about that. There's the thought that they hadn't gotten the laws of kashrut yet, so they played it safe and had a dairy meal. And there's also the idea of Torah and giving of wisdom as being like, basically, and this comparison is made in the tradition of being fed, being suckling on the milk of Torah also. And there are, of course, more explanations. And since you did mention it, and I said there was appreciation, for including, noting the importance of including Jews by choice is also, there's also the tradition of reading the book of Ruth, which is kind of the paradigmatic biblical book about the Jewish people being open to receive, right? To receive those who wish to kind of join us in our journey and in our destiny. And that's yet one more way. I don't know if you want to say anything more about that, but I saw there was a lot of appreciation for that, Lily. Thanks.
Yes, I think that's one of the most beautiful parts of the Shavuot story too. I love that element of inclusion and calling out specifically that we're all there, no matter how and when we found our way.
Yeah.
And thank you for calling out the dairy too. I think that's, when in doubt, you can always receive cheesecake is maybe a good sentiment, even when other pieces feel hard and not as simple to come by and require practice. I love the idea that there's always joy and beauty in cheesecake accessible to us.
Thanks, Lily, so much. Chodesh Tov to you and Chag Sameach, and thanks. It really has been a gift to have you leading us and complementing Sarah's teaching and leading here. So thank you so much for being here. Thanks, Rachel, for holding us, and each of you for being here. And we'll look forward tomorrow to welcoming Zach Newman back to lead us Tuesday. Until then, be safe and well, everyone. Many blessings.